All right, you get a double bonus today. We're doing 2 quick tips on a Friday afternoon. With me, I have my friend James, who's a Microsoft MVP, also a fanatic around all these new things in Fabrics. Hello, James. Welcome.
Hey, Mike, how are you doing?
Doing well. Today, we're excited to just talk to you about what is Semantic Link and Semantic Link Labs. James and I have been beating up ideas around this for a while. We're like, this is so cool. We're so excited to share this with you. So, without any further ado, I'm going to jump us right in, and we're going to start right away talking about Semantic Link Labs. And we want to give super kudos to this. This is a project that has been created from the Microsoft team, not technically supported by Microsoft, but it is a Semantic Link Labs project built by Michael Kowalski. And you can catch him on LinkedIn if you want to see more about him, what he's doing, and how he's building this amazing tool. We're going to do our best to unpack parts of this tool. It's massive. There's so many things you can do to this. So stay tuned. There'll be more videos around how to use Semantic Link Labs. All right, James, take us away.
All right. So let's go to the next slide here. So the first question is, where can you use Semantic Link Labs? So we've got a couple of some key points here. So you can use Semantic Link Labs in a notebook in Fabric, and you can use that to connect to semantic models, to workspaces, to reports, and in more stuff. We're going to get more into that later here, but yeah, the important part is you can open it up in a Fabric notebook and import it there, and from there you can use it to connect to all kinds of stuff throughout your Power BI Fabric tenant and do all kinds of cool stuff with it. So let's get going. And then of course you can use these links here to find out more about it. The first link there is for the documentation, which is actually some of the best documentation for open source libraries that I've seen out there. And then the second link there is to actually go get the source code, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, so the second link will take you directly to GitHub where the project lives. There's a sample notebooks there. There's all the code. It is open source, and you can look at everything here. One thing I'll just want to caution us about, the reason we have a little green check mark next to the notebooks experience is because this is being built inside a notebook, it is a service-only feature, and those notebooks need to live inside a Fabric workspace. So if you're in a Power BI Pro or Power BI standard workspace, Semantic Link Labs will not work for you in a Pro workspace. However, once you dial in or get turned on Fabric in your workspace, then all these features are unblocked for you. And one of the things you're going to see us talk a lot about here that I think is really powerful with this tool is the high levels of automation that we can do with this tool, which is going to be really impactful for administrators and people who govern their Power BI environments. This project is built on a separate project that it is owned by Microsoft called SemPy. So Semantic Link for Python, I think that's really what they're trying to do here. And James, give us some details. What's SemPy? How does this build? How does Semantic Link Labs build on top of SemPy?
Yeah, so SemPy is an officially, like you mentioned, an officially supported library that allows, and it's actually built in if you're using Spark 3.4 or Fabric Runtime 1.2 or higher. It actually comes baked into your notebook, so you can just start using it right away. You don't have to import it or do anything special. Like I said, it's officially supported, it is installed by default, and it really focuses on just querying your semantic models, finding out information about them. The idea there is to just kind of have metadata about your semantic models, be able to work with them. And that's most of what it's built for there. And Semantic Link Labs goes well beyond that. And that's what we're going to be talking about today.
Now, I'll also be clear here, Semantic Link Labs is not supported officially by Microsoft. So if you have a problem, come ask James and me. So we will help you with the support of these things as much as we can. You have to install it. So Semantic Link Labs is not installed in the runtime 2.1 or higher by default. So there's a command you have to run. You have to run a bash command, which is using a pip command. We'll show you how to do that here in a second. And Semantic Link Labs extends upon just the ability to touch the semantic model. We can touch reports. We can look at the reports. If you're using the new PBIR or PBIP format, you can also use those formats to help you manipulate or do things directly to reports. The part that I'm really excited about this is it handles all the authentication for any Power BI and Fabric API access. So this is another really great win here, again, for automation. You can talk to all the rich Power BI APIs directly through Semantic Link Labs, which is awesome.
Yep. I've developed a lot of solutions that use the Fabric REST APIs, and I can tell you that about half the time I spend developing those solutions is just handling the authentication nightmare aspect of it. So with something like this, where it just uses your existing Fabric authentication session right there in your browser to run them for you, it's fantastic.
Highly recommended. All right, moving on to our how to install this, right? So this is kind of the introduction, the getting started piece here. We do want to call out this is the code, and we will have a notebook today that we're going to show you how to run this code inside a notebook. But there is a requirement to have a bash script started. This is a pip install, so it's usually a little percent symbol pip, and then you install Semantic Link Labs. Now, Semantic Link Labs is a library that's hosted for everyone to use, and getting installed from PyPy, which is a Python. I don't know what the other Pi stands for.
Python PI, PYPI. I don't know what the PI stands for. I should probably look that up.
Did our homework a little bit more than that one, but it's open source. The code's landed there. It comes in a package, so that's the package that you're installing. You're installing from that open source library. Michael Kowalski directly publishes to that library, so he'll be able to publish updates. All those updates go directly to that library, and when you install it, you can install the latest version using this command script.
It's Python package index. That's what the PI is.
There you go. That's what we're looking for. Thank you. A quick Google solved the problem for us.
Yes, sir.
So let's jump in here a little bit more talking about this second command here. So this is a Python command, and I just want to highlight here, once you've installed the package inside your notebook, that means you can use the package. The first thing you're going to want to do is you're going to want to use this import SempI labs as labs. Now, the first part is importing the package. The second one is using like a shorthand. It's like abbreviating that whole word for you. So that way, when you want to write new commands in your notebook, you don't have to write the full word SempI_labs every single time. Now you can just write the word labs and then use the commands or functions that you need directly from the classes that are being built in this library. So super helpful.
Yeah, those of you who are familiar with SQL, it's just like using a SQL column alias at the end of or a table alias, including the word as. So think of it exactly the same way. And then later on, when you're using it, you do that whatever you've done the abbreviation dot, and then after that. So it works very similarly to aliases in SQL.
Here's another one where we're doing a little bit more here. So in the sixth line down here, right, you'll see we have the Semantic Labs has a class called Tom. And then you're doing an import connect semantic model. So there's actually another same concept here, right? If you want to use, semantic labs .tom connect semantic model, you can do all that. Or if we're importing just that library at the end there, connect semantic model, it's just a function that you can automatically use. So I'm pointing this out just purely because I know this is very technical, just starting off. But these are the examples that Michael Kowalski writes his code towards. So as you look at his examples, as you look at how he's building things, this command is very important at the top of your notebook. So that way, as you're accessing various functions throughout the libraries, you'll see that this correlates directly to what Michael Kowalski is doing in his example notebooks. So just be aware of that. Something that tripped me up a little bit when I got started, just sharing that with you as well so it's clear and it makes sense.
Yep. And all of that code that we have right there, we just copied and pasted that straight from the docs page. So if you go to that docs link we shared earlier, you can access it right from there. So you don't have to worry about pausing the video and trying to type it in right now.
Exactly. Awesome. So why is this important? Why would we go through all this effort to kind of learn this new Semantic Link Labs? Well, this is why. The why is really around, there's a plethora of solutions here. There's so many different things that you can do with it. A couple examples here is you can run VertiPaq Analyzer. It's built into the tool. So VertiPaq Analyzer lets you see how many columns there are, what's the size of every column, what's the cardinality of columns. When you're going in to heavily analyze what's going on in a semantic model, you're going to want to know that information. Now, one of the advantages of using Semantic Link Labs is you can take that table of data and now you can write that data down to a lakehouse or store it somewhere. So this can now give you, think about the implications of this. If you do a deployment on a model or do a refresh on a model, at the end of your process, you can always run VertiPaq Analyzer and store the results somewhere. And now you can trend your model over time, what's growing, how big it is, how many partitions, like what are the column sizes. So now you can kind of watch your model over time. And then if there's any problems or issues with the model, you can then go back and look, okay, around this time, around this period, we had a lot of increase in table or column sizes. So
look at that spark line. Oh, look at the cardinality on that column went through the roof. Gee, I wonder what happened.
Exactly. And this does occur. Like when you have very high importance data sets, something that's certified going out to a team of people, right? You don't want to put VertiPaq Analyzer probably on every single data model you're building because there's going to be a lot of them. But when you build things like certified content or content that's very important to the organization, that's where we want to pay a little bit more attention to this. And this is where we integrate this tool to give us more visibility to those really key semantic models that we care about. We
Or
talked
if
about
you're
this.
running really close to the ceiling, like
Yep.
if you're already using almost all of the resources that you can get out of your capacity, and you're trying to
Yeah.
get that every last little bit of performance out, it's good to run Vertipack Analyzer and best practice analysis to try to um,
Oh, tamp it
get
down.
your
Yeah.
performance. Yeah,
Reduce the
it's
ceiling.
to make sure that you're staying below the limit, so you don't have to buy
Yeah.
another capacity. Yep.
Totally agree. The next thing we're going to talk about is all the API access. So again, the Semantic Link Labs adds a surface layer, handles all the authentication for you, but then gives you access to talk directly to Power BI APIs, Fabric APIs, and even the Graph APIs or Entra ID to get graph details or data about users and things out of the other APIs. So again, this is a pain point, right? We don't have full access to all these things. Having a single tool that just handles the authentication for you and lets you talk those APIs seamlessly, super big win. Again, heavy around automation.
Hmm.
We'll jump over here next to the semantic model. When your models get larger or you're doing more advanced refreshing patterns, say, for example, you're trying to manage partitions, say you're trying to incrementally refresh data in a specific way, or you're moving
Hmm.
models between one workspace to another. James had a great example. We were talking earlier about using this tool to produce that. James, you want to give us an example of why you may want to think about partition management
Yeah.
across?
So say you've got an enormous model like when you try, if you were to try refresh that the standard way without partitions, it would take too long, it would time out, or it would overload your SQL server. What you can do is split your big tables into partitions, and then you can use automation, something like Semantic Link Labs, to have it refresh each partition one at a time, so that it doesn't overload your capacity, it doesn't overload your SQL server. It's doing everything kind of methodically, and it allows you to basically populate the historical data or the archival data in your semantic model, and then from that point forward, you can go to an incremental refresh and only get the new data. So that's one example. Another one would be, for instance, if you have your fact table, of course, gets updated every day, but you might have a slower refresh cadence on your dimension table. Say your ETL process only adds new dimensional elements every week. You might want to set it up so that your fact table in your model gets refreshed every day, but then have it go in and schedule the refresh for the other tables in your model every week. And you can do that with something like this, whereas the default scheduled refresh only lets you refresh the whole model or not at all.
Yep. This is really kind of important here. Again, this is really tuning and making sure that we're getting to a step where we're really optimizing our Fabric or Power BI environments. You're going to get to this level eventually when your models get larger in size. You're going to hit thresholds, and that's where this tool really shines and does a really good job.
Mhm.
I'm going to move down here to the bottom row, which is Best Business Practice Analyzer, BPA, Best Practice Analyzer. And what this is a tool that was kind of initially developed inside Tabular Editor. Michael Kowalski jumped on this one and made a whole library of C# commands and scripting that he also recommends for best practices when building semantic models. So great. But again, part of our release pipeline, part of our data ops should be, does our model conform to some standards that we're going to have in our company? Well,
Mhm.
Best Business Practice Analyzer does that. It basically walks through it. It has the ability to make different tests on your model. For example, this index column can't have a null in it, or these
Mhm.
column names are incorrect, or these measures don't have descriptions. Simple
Right.
things like that we should be kind of checking before we certify content and send it out the door.
Right.
So part of our certification process should incorporate some level of like rule or error checking before we roll something out the door.
Right.
This is where we put best business practice analyzer, BPA, and then we can then run it on not just one model, we can then automate it to run on every model in a workspace. And
Mhm.
that's where you start seeing the power of this. And you could imagine I'm going to run BPA across all models that are certified across my organization. And then every night I'm getting a report out to say, what's the health of my models? So again, I wouldn't do this on every single model in your organization, but if you are publishing out content in a certified or even maybe a promoted fashion, it might be worth your time to start automating some of that and thinking about
Mhm.
that as well.
Yep.
Any other comments, James, around BPA?
Yeah, I would say that this is kind of similar to the Vertipack Analyzer in a because your BPA actually impacts the performance of your semantic model. Because if you have things like your
Agree.
bidirectional relationships, and if you have things like where it's summarizing columns that don't need to be summarized, like maybe that's probably not a performance thing, but it can be confusing if someone's trying to use your semantic model as a way to build a report. If you've got, for instance, I've seen this a lot, order by columns where it's like
Mm.
a number, and the order by column ends up getting automatically summarized. That doesn't make any sense. And the fact that it could accidentally get added into a visual somewhere and
Mhm.
have a summarization of something that makes no sense to summarize,
Yep.
or even worse, where Power BI automatically adds relationships between tables that it thinks should be there. And if you have two tables that have the order by, and it just says, oh, these should probably be related to each other because it's the same column name, you could have rules in BPA that check for that kind of thing and say, this looks probably not right. You should probably fix this before it goes live.
Yes.
And so yeah, having something like this as part of your sort of quality check process to make sure that you're only publishing reports and semantic models that are actually doing what you want them to do, and what they should be doing as far as best practices are concerned,
Excellent.
and for performance and for, of course, usability from the user's perspective.
Excellent. Like that one. The whole story of all this is automation. So like that's our kind of our last note here is, right, this is a process that runs inside a notebook. Really think about how you could use this inside a pipeline. So the pipeline can trigger data loading, the pipeline can also trigger semantic model refreshes and other actions as well, activities. But you could also run a notebook at the end of your pipeline to then do a bunch of checks or series of things as well. So just be very clear. We're just really trying to hammer this home. Automation is super key here as well. All right, dipping on over to our demo portion. So we're going to do a quick demo. Let's leave the slides now. We're going to leave this. We're going to go in and we're going to demo Best Business Practice Analyzer. And we're going to run it on just one semantic model. We're not going to run it on every single model, just to give you a flavor of what's happening here. And as we get further down this and do more training around this, we're going to continue to enhance this and doing more of the features that Michael Kowalski explains here as well. So with that, I'm going to transition over here to my workspace. I have a workspace that is a Fabric-enabled workspace. And in this workspace, I am using a notebook. And my notebook here, I do want to point this out. We called out in the slides that you can use two different kinds of notebooks. So inside your notebook experience, you could use a Spark Python notebook, or you can use a pure Python notebook. The Python notebook is model or level Python or version of Python is 3.11. That's the one we're using. Both SemPy, so SemPy is the underlining library that we require to use Semantic Link Labs. It's automatically installed by default. So in both of these instances, we only have to install Semantic Link Labs. But once we install that, our session will run. Now, I'm exploring this. I've been playing with this a lot. I'm liking the Python notebooks. I'm trying to spend more time there to be better at them. So today for our demo, I'm going to use the Python notebook to begin our demo.
Should we talk maybe a little bit about why it might make sense for people to use a Python notebook instead of a PySpark notebook?
100%. James, explain that while I get the cluster started here.
Sure. So one of the main reasons why you would need Spark is if you have really big data and it actually needs to spin up multiple cluster nodes to process the data in parallel. For something like Semantic Link Labs, if you're doing something where it's not actually doing anything with a lot of data, it's mostly just calling REST APIs, or maybe it's saying refresh this thing or go check that model to see if it has best practices done. That's really not moving a lot of data, so it may not actually be necessary to spin up all of these parallel nodes in the cluster in the Spark. But because it's written in Python, it could run in PySpark or it could run in regular Python. And because Python just runs in a single node, it will usually load faster,
Yes.
and it will usually consume fewer CUs. And so, particularly if you're doing some of this kind of stuff, maybe you've got just an F2 capacity and you're using that to do all of your kind of administrative stuff, and your bigger capacities you got set up for your actual production workloads, then you would want to be really conservative to make sure that you're not using a bunch of CUs that you wouldn't necessarily need to be using. And because PySpark has more overhead than a regular Python notebook, then a Python notebook might be the better way to go with this.
And I'm showing you here in the bottom left-hand corner of this notebook, you'll see that I am running my Python session, and it has a CPU of 2 virtual cores. This is like a single machine that you can now run, only running this notebook. So this is great. I really like this. It's very efficient. We've already installed our first step here. It took 11 seconds to install our first notebook here. Let me make it a little bit larger here so everyone can see the code. Okay, we're now going to import the library. Now that we've installed the library here, we can run this one. I'll hit Control-Enter here. And so now it will now load the libraries, import those as well. So it's currently running that. Executed in 4 seconds. Okay, so now we're going to set up some variables. And again, you can do this kind of however you need to. We try to make this a little bit easy to follow. But you can set up variables. For example, we're going to say select a particular workspace from our environment. And we want to filter down by item type. So let's go to the workspace and let's filter by only a particular list of items. So now what I can do here on this command, line 6 is going to use the function. And you'll notice here I'm using the word admin because that was used above when I had the shorthand for Semantic Link Labs, or that's the shorthand for that admin level feature. So now when I run this command, it will now go to my workspace, find all the items in the workspace, and it will filter them just by the item type of semantic models. And we can now visualize that down here in our table. And you'll notice here, these are all of our models. And if I scroll through this list, we can see the names of those models listed by item name. And then we have an item ID for, this is the GUID of the item that lives inside Fabric. So we're getting a little bit more detail than you would in the normal UI inside Fabric. You're not going to see the GUIDs unless you go dig around in the URL. It's nice, clear, and easy here. Now, if I, just for example here, if I wanted to show more than just the item of semantic models, I would just simply remove the item type at the end here. I'm going to Control X that, cut that out, and I'll run this command again, and you'll now notice again, it will run, and now it will list everything in there. The lakehouse, the pipelines, the notebooks, SQL endpoints, every single object will be listed here. So that's why we're using this filter here, basically to pre-filter our table. Control Enter to run again, and now it will run our command and give me just the semantic models out. So in trying to form good practices with data engineering and notebook design, we will then take this data frame that we made. It's this object here. We save it into our data frame DF on line 6. We're going to reuse that data frame in the next command to go grab a specific item from it. So now we're going to use a filter command. And this is filtering the column called item name, where the string contains the word star model. This should give us essentially one item. Control Enter again. We'll then filter our data frame here down to a single item, which we have now below. You don't have to do this. You could actually pluck that individual item right out of the list, but we just want to verify that we have only one item selected. And now we're ready to display just the name. So what we want in our next command is we want the item ID that we're going to use in our next command. So we just want to show you how to get a single item. This is a row of data. We want just the item ID and the GUID associated with it. So we're using the I location. I guess it's index location is what I would stand for.
Basically row 0.
Row 0.
Yep.
Go get that item from that one record and display it. So we're going to run that real quick, and we'll show you, yes, in fact, this is the text of our GUID that describes our star model that we have. With that being said, we can now run BPA. So that's all we need. We just need the ID of the item that we want to run, and now we run it. So this will run our model here. And if you wanted to, you could run, make a list of all the items in your semantic model or your workspace, and you could just iterate through one by one. And what it will do is it'll rip through each one of these items. And we're just storing this as an HTML. So you're going to see there's an HTML output down below here that's going to talk you through all the different items here. Is this severity a warning? Is this just an informational item? Here's all the rules that were applied here. And you'll notice some of the rules here have a link that go describe the documentation around, hey, you should probably add data category for columns. So if I click on this link, it'll actually take you over to Microsoft's documentation that says, hey, this is the rule that we recommend when you're modeling your data. So it's going to help you be really intelligent around what you're building inside these semantic models. And again, it's going to try and give you as much help as it can to design, build, and make these sustainable in a good long-term fashion. Here, you can notice here, you'll notice here, relationship columns should be of a data type integer, right? That's a recommendation. So really, really useful here. That's basically it for our demo. We want to show you how easy it is to install the library, get it started in a notebook, and just walk you through a couple commands. We're going to keep picking through different objects that Michael Kowalski is building out in example notebooks, and we'll keep doing that. With that, we are done with our demo. Thank you all so much for attending. James, any final words, things that we should cover off here on?
Yeah, I would just say make sure you stay tuned because we're going to have more of these coming soon, and we're really excited to start showing off some of the more sophisticated automation stuff. Some maybe even get into some backups, some logging, things like that, and show off how you can do that and really leverage this to the max.
Awesome. Thank you all so much, and we'll see you next time.
Yep. Take care, everyone.